most powerful instrument of government to bring about social and economic change, renew hope, and build confidence in the people. In 2003, under a bipartisan resolution, a 14-member Education Transformation Task Force was established to review the entire education system and make recommendations. The report was presented to Parliament in December 2004 and approved. Since then, changes have been made to the management, structure, content, and infrastructure of education. We cannot say definitively, however, that we have transformed education according to the goals set in the report 10 years ago. Mr. Speaker, I took over the Ministry of Education 3 years into the transformation project. During my tenure, I expanded the scope of the task force recommendations. Some of the recommendations by the task force were just about ready to be operationalized, and others needed to be re-evaluated and reshaped given the passage of time and new executive priorities. Mr. Speaker, in our 4 years at the Ministry of Education, within the transformation framework, we started and/or completed the establishment of the Jamaica Teaching Council to license and regulate the teaching profession, the National Education Inspectorate to evaluate education quality and set standards, the National Education Trust to manage education infrastructure and mobilize resources to its development, the National College for Education Leadership to improve the quality and management of leadership of schools, the National Parenting Commission to create a formal state mechanism to engage, inform, and mobilize parent support for education, the competence-based transition policy to end the automatic promotion of students who did not master foundation literacy and numeracy skills, the nationalization of the Grade 4 literacy test as a benchmark exam, and the implementation of the school accountability matrix for the management of literacy targets, which forced schools and parents to intervene much earlier in the education life of the child, providing information for schools to plan for the education needs of students and gave students a better chance in the GSAT competition. We implemented the A-STEP program to support those students who did not master literacy skills after all their attempts, and create an alternative and more equitable pathway to secondary education rather than the stratification inherent in GSAT. We established the National Students Registry to uniquely identify and track all students in the education system and develop a basis for the implementation of the National Education Information System, which would lead to better resource management. Mr. Speaker, in the Standing Finance Committee just passed, the current Minister of Education was able to point out that he was able to save on the purchase of books. Why? Because we implemented a system that now we are able to exactly determine how many students are in the system and how many books we will need. Before, what we used to do was to estimate. Sometimes you would overestimate, sometimes you would underestimate. And what we realized was happening is that the book rooms at schools were piling up with books. And just that one simple change transformed the system in a way, made it more efficient. Government can save money. Mr. Speaker, we implemented the school safety policy, and we deployed deans of discipline in schools, which saw the reduction of violence and disruptive behavior. Mr. Speaker, we implemented the Career Advancement Program to treat with the large number of unattached youth, 16 and 19 years old, who would not be absorbed into the HEART program because of space constraints or inability to meet the minimum grade 9 matriculation standards. Mr. Speaker, we developed the Centers of Excellence policy, which created a new scheme of management for which all new schools should be operated. Minister, I don't know if you're continuing with the Centers of Excellence policy, But the first school under that policy was the Belmont Academy, which I gather is still doing very well. And we also put under that program the Steertown Academy. I haven't been able to check on the performance of Steertown. And most importantly, Mr. Speaker, we put in place, we kept our promise, and we never changed it. When we won the election, many persons had already paid their school fees, but we said, no, we made this as a very serious election promise. And we said to the schools, give back the parents the money. We will give you the fees that you are charged. We kept our promise. And when I look at the figures, because there's a lot of talk about the success of the free tuition policy, but I made sure to examine the figures. And there was a jump right after 2007 in the enrollment of students. The absolute number increased. Started to decline again, not because of the re-emergence or the reintroduction of fees, but simply because the population cohort is declining. But it showed that there were more students who should have been in the education system, but because of fees could not be in the education system. And as a result of the removal, they took advantage of the opportunity and enrolled. The policy worked. Mr. Speaker, these are only a few of the transformative policies and programs we were able to establish. The flow-through effect was seen in a doubling of students who met the minimum matriculation requirement for tertiary education in 5 years. The effect of this was directly displayed in the tertiary enrollment numbers. I want, Mr. Speaker, I want you to note this point. In 2006, 65,872 persons were enrolled in tertiary institutions. There were 6,632 applications for student loans, and approximately $800 million was dispersed as student loans. At the end of 2011, there were 74,600 students enrolled in tertiary institutions. There were 12,189 applications made to the Student Loan Bureau, doubling of the applications, and approximately $3.2 billion was dispersed. Mr. Speaker, the flow-through effect of all those policies that we implemented improved the performance at the primary and secondary levels, and as a result of those programs being implemented, it has led, unfortunately, to a bottleneck in tertiary education financing. As more students qualified for tertiary places by virtue of meeting matriculation requirements, the present model of financing tertiary education has become increasingly unsustainable. Mr. Speaker, it is against this backdrop that I make the following statement. After 10 years and several $billion of implementation of education transformation,